my name is Dalen DeVille, and this is Caffeine for the Win. So here at my time at Winston-Salem State, I was a teacher assistant for Anatomy and Physiology 2. I was also a collegiate basketball player and a librarian here at CGO Kelly. I chose this topic because I was wondering if I would perform better with caffeine or coffee in my system other than water before a game. So I chose this topic because I wanted to see if water was a culprit or if caffeine could help me. Changes in focus from start to end. So from the beginning, I chose coffee, and then I initially had to make a change midway because of caffeine is found in coffee, and you want to I wanted to aim at the stimulant instead of the actual product coffee. I chose coffee, but it's easily accessible. You can go to Starbucks, you can go to McDonald's, you can go anywhere and find some coffee, so it's not that hard to find. But I chose caffeine instead because there are other products with caffeine in it, so we're not just talking about coffee here. So I changed also my focus from psychological effects to more of the whole compass of like sports and stuff, because just psychological effects that will help you, but you're really looking at the neuromuscular and muscular components of competition, and that's what I was really focused on. I found an article that had a lot of focus on RPE, and it did talk about what I wanted to talk about, but more of the numbers were focused on RPE instead of actual like statistics and numbers that had to do with like improvement of muscular function. So I let go of that article. I had to find a base article, and it's in here, so I'll go ahead and explain that later on. I changed my focus from improvement of endurance performance to overall competitive performance, or like competition in general, just because I used to be a basketball player, and that was more or less that environment that I was in. It was not just endurance, long running, like cross country or anything. It's like you're jumping, you're running, you're skipping, and anything that is fast twitch or has anything to do with explosiveness. So we'll go into that a little bit later. The most interesting findings I had throughout my research were that endurance time increases either on cycling or on foot. Endurance time increases with caffeine. Improvements in performance time, max power, and mean power were also observed on cycles after ingesting caffeine. Caffeine also induces a higher heart rate and better exercise performance for well-trained athletes. And so I put well-trained athletes, and I highlighted it because higher heart rate for a regular person is not beneficial or healthy at all. But for trained athletes and the myocardium around their heart, it's very it's easy to pick up your heart rate without negatively affecting your body. So that was a big emphasis on heart rate and well-trained athletes. Without it being well-trained, it would not work. Positive effects also happen from caffeine, positive effects on mood and psychological response. So that would also be very beneficial in a competition-based sport. So what I have learned from my general research over the topic, caffeine is not as bad as everybody makes it seem. Children are told that caffeine is bad for one's growth and whatnot, but it is actually, it can be used the right way, it can be beneficial. Caffeine's ability to affect mood and psychological response can be crucial in competitive events, especially late game situations. And I know that being a bench player, and I've heard the same story from other bench players, that coming off the bench, it's kind of hard to get yourself productive and stay alert and focused because you weren't in the game before. So I feel like caffeine can really tackle that problem for the people who don't get too much playing time and are working towards getting that. The process of this research has taught me that nothing in life comes easy. You have to really want something, especially if you want it to come out good and a good product to come out the end. You have to put a lot of hard work in this, especially if it's tedious or time consuming. You need to go ahead and put your work in early. The research information that I have taken, it helps me realize that if you start from scratch, if you start from scratch, progress can still start from scratch again. You might not make it far with one article. You might think that you have it with two, but then you might have to take it back and start from scratch again. You have to be very dedicated to creating a review, and you have to know that it's not going to be 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour. It's going to take you some time to make an actual review. And with anything in life, anything that comes out that's good, it takes some time before. So that was actually what I've learned through the process of making this research review and this presentation. Caffeine has an overall beneficial outcome for trained athletes. The effects such as increased endurance time, max power, and better perceived exertion can help most athletes during the time of competition. The mental and physical improvements found suggest that caffeine could be the next big component in Gatorade or other performance products as such. I would, if I had the chance, conduct a clinical trial with athletes running sprints after they ingested a caffeine tablet. This would allow me to observe the performance of sprinters or any sport that requires explosive action and involves fast twitch fibers. The results of this study would be very important because most sports involve bursts of speed and instead of long duration running or contain a mixture of the two. So getting into the sprinting part of it instead of just the long distance running, that'll be very beneficial for the progress of this field, just because caffeine and how it affects the other sports instead of running and track and cross country, how it affects the other sports would be very influential and very important. So that was my closing, and this is the works cited. Thank you.